Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Ray Esports Racing League here on Apex Racing TV. My name is Ron Mullins. Joining me in the if I can spit my words out here, joining me in the virtual commentary booth is Charles Bichelle, and I'm the tongue twister here tonight. And in the virtual production hallway of our old friend Josh Wilkie. You join us here tonight at the historic Watkins Glen on the boot layout, to be a bit more precise, where the ladies and gentlemen of the Ray Esports Racing League will do battle here in the MX-5s and the Spec Racer Fords. Now, there's a lot we can expect over the next hour and a half, me getting my tongue wrapped around itself about 15 times, maybe one of them, but in terms of the stuff on track, I think great racing is definitely going to be the main thing we expect over the next hour and a half. But there's a lot of things that may interfere in that. Track limits may be one of them, but there's just... We were talking about this between me and Charles before the start of this broadcast about how track limits may play a bit of a role in tonight's race, whether it be the Spec Racer Fords or the MX-5. So to pass this off to you, Charles, do you think the track limits are going to be really important here tonight?
Well, I think that they are. There's a couple real big spots. Turn one and then the penultimate corner, second to last corner, is usually big. But as we're seeing the inboard here coming into the bus stop, I really wanted you to pay attention to that Armco barrier that sticks out on the right-hand side of the bus stop. It's not what we would say as a track limit where you would get a 1X, but that Armco has a tendency to reach out and grab the right side of your car because they will try and just jump that curb to get the best entry into that section of corners. You will ruin your race really quickly, and that is about the worst track limit you can get is when you bounce off the Armco barrier. It's almost race over at that point. So yeah, that's the one big one. The rest of it, because when they did the rescan a few seasons ago with Watkins, they really kind of opened up the track limits a little bit in most areas. Turn one, I think, is a little bit of an exception. So it's you've got to be fairly close on there, but a lot of it's just pretty wide open. Yeah, if you're in the grass, you'll probably get a track limit penalty. But where there's concrete, you can generally get away with a lot of stuff on this track.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a loose shoulders that this track has compared to some others. Spa, definitely in iRacing, has a little bit of a bad reputation with those track limits, but here at this track, a little bit loose, but also if you do pick up those slowdowns, especially coming out of the first corner, you're really going to be in a world of hurt, especially with these MX-5s and Spec Racer Fords that are so reliant on the drift. If you have to slow down, you will drop back like a rock through the field, especially in the early stages of this race. So I said that we have two races here tonight. The MX-5s are the first. You can see we're in this qualifying session right now, and currently Jameson Huffman is at the front right now. You can see at a 2 minutes 7.099, he set a pretty good lap time now, trying to rebound after a not so pleasant weekend, you could say. Not so pleasant Tuesday here with the Ray Esports series back at Summit Point. He didn't have the best night by his standards. He was having such a good season, and then last week was a little bit of a black eye on his season. So I think right now he's looking for a little bit of a rebound, and right now he's setting himself up quite nicely for that. A pretty sizable gap between himself and Megan Overstreet there in P2.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a week to remember last week for him. But this is one of those tracks. It's used so often in iRacing. It's one of the most popular tracks, and so therefore it's used almost. I would say it's at least in one series every season, and it's for everything. It's for the MX-5s, the single make races, Porsche Cup. As we see a little bit of a spin there. Nice job just to kind of get the car stopped by Murphy Nichols. IMSA, ESS, I mean, really this track, it just runs everything. And everything with the fact that it's got a few different configurations. It's got a shorter layout. It's got a longer layout. You can take the bus stop in or out. It just makes for some really, really competitive racing. And I think it makes for clean racing. With the exception of the section we're looking at now. This is the S's, and that's primarily on lap 1. I've seen absolutely massive wrecks here on lap 1 just from cold tires and inadequate tire pressures. People will just, they'll get excited because the race is starting, and they'll want to battle from the drop of the green flag, and they'll get too wide through there, and the cars just will not behave. And the next thing you know, you've got about half the field wadded up in the fence.
Well, I'll tell you, I think that chaos can even carry over to real life. I've seen many accidents through that turn 2, 3, and 4 section here to kick off this lap here at Watkins Glen. I think it was Martin Truex Jr. in I think it was the Busch North Series back then, who vaulted over the barriers going through this particular section that we see. We're riding on board with Murphy Nichols there at the start of the lap. He's currently P5 in this qualifying session, pulling out of the draft there. Not sure why he's doing that, but in that same section of the track, you can see a little bit of bump drafting action here. That might be the main source of contact in this race. But getting back to the point that I was going to mention there, that section of the circuit is somewhat street circuit-esque in its feel. There's not a whole lot of area when it comes to runoff in that section of the circuit, and that small little bit where it feels like the whole track bottlenecks, you could say, in that small little section. That's where it kind of screws with your mind a little bit whenever you're behind the wheel. You just feel a lot less comfortable. You feel a lot more nervous driving through that section, even in these slower cars, which do not have any aerodynamic grip to speak of. The only aerodynamics are really just the windshield pushing the car down onto the road a little bit, and the mirrors on the side of the car. So really, when you're relying on the mechanical grip so much and you're teetering on the edge going through that very fast section, that's where we might see quite a lot of mistakes. But I mentioned there that bump drafting is quite important in this race. Will probably be the source of most incidents we have, this just bump drafting going horribly wrong. But it is something that these drivers are trying to use in qualifying, and you can see Beans Forster has now jumped up into the pole position ahead of Jameson Huffman. The gap between those two is still fairly small, all things considered, teetering around the 10th of the second barrier. So pretty close field right now, as you can see, between P1 and P23, separated by not that much, about a little over 5 seconds, separating about 23 cars. So I think we're in for a pretty good race here tonight.
Yeah, I think, and that's kind of an outlier, because I think there'll be a lot of these on the bottom half of this, probably not drafting, probably just running some individual laps. So you can definitely see where the draft will help. And if you think it's crazy here with the bump drafting, wait till the next race when we do spec racers. So it's even more pronounced there. But yeah, you're absolutely right. This section here, because there is very little room for error because you're so close to the barriers. That's why it's another reason we see issues in this, especially at the start of the race. The curbs will have a tendency to just kind of kick the car back to the middle of the track to help keep you off the wall, but then you're into another car, and that's when the calamity ensues, as they may say. So yeah, it's just going to be one of those races. If we get through the first lap pretty clean through that section, I think we're in for a real treat of a race, because I think it'll be a lot of this nose to tail driving for a large part of it. I think I've seen bump drafting even down through this section, coming through the chute, down into the boot section, as well as down the front straight. So there's 3 or 4 good areas to get a nice bump draft, maybe try and extend the gap behind a couple of tenths. So it should be a really fine race, as we're just seeing Megan Overstreet here starting on her push lap to see if she can set a better qualifying time.
Still running in a pretty good position right now. A little bit of skid there you can hear. I heard the tires basically screaming in pain heading through turn 1. So we'll see if she's able to really extract too much time out of her here. So right now running in P3, which isn't a bad position at all. That's still a pretty good position to be in, don't get me wrong, but I think she may expect a little bit more. She's been up towards the front in basically all the races, whether it be in the Formula class, which we aren't seeing here tonight, or whether it be in the MX-5s or the Spec Racer Ford. She's just been running up towards the front, an indomitable force here in the Ray Esports series, but she just hasn't been able to extract that extra 1% and grab the win, although she has been in contention for podiums pretty much all throughout this season. And we are actually, after this broadcast is done here tonight, we will hit the final third of this race. So the schedule is kind of broken up into different segments. So we start off the schedule running the Spec Racer Fords and the Formula class, and we moved on to the Formulas and the MX-5s, and we move on to the MX-5s and the Spec Racer Ford. So we continue that cycle every 3 races. So we've now hit the end of this 3-race cycle here, trying to swap between the 3 classes. So we're now going to hit the final third of this race. And I think that may be a good time between now and the end of the qualifying session to take a look at the championship results, if we have those available with us tonight. It's still fairly close across all 3 of the classes. I'm sure MX-5s have been one of them, because they've just been so up and down and teeter-totter with the drivers that we've seen up towards the front of the standings, that I wouldn't be too shocked if there's a very small gap up towards the front. I think we may be able to pull up those results here in just a few moments time. We're following Megan Overstreet, still trying to put down a pretty good lap, going through the second to last corner here. That's always a pain in the butt corner from my perspective. I feel like I'm never able to get it right. And then coming through the final corner, hitting the curb a little bit. That's a big factor in tonight's race, at curb management, and we'll see if she can improve her time here.
What's his?
Ooh, not good enough. So
Not good enough.
I mean, still pretty good, qualifying performance from Megan Overstreet. So we're gonna take a look very quickly at the championship standings before we get into the grid for tonight's race in a few moments after that. So we'll take a look at the championship results right now. At Seamus and Huffman, they're up towards the front. Fairly big gap, honestly, between himself and Josh Justice there. So about 21 points separating the two of them. Then Megan Overstreet only 5 points behind Justice in P2, Brad Gold in P4, then Lewis Lockshine rounding out your top 5. Fairly close behind James and Huffman. So I think Huffman right now in a very good position to take the championship here. Of course, he won't be able to lock it up next week or the week after. It's still going to be a fairly close championship result for him, but he's in a pretty good position right now. 21-point gap between himself and Josh Justice. He definitely has to be the favorite now.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's a pretty good gap, and it's as long as he's still running up front in P2 in qualifying, so it gives him a good opportunity to maybe extend that gap a little more. It's going to be tough sledding for Josh Justice, who's down in 16th on the qualifying order. So he's going to have a little work to do to try and tighten that gap.
I'll tell you, at a track where we think this is going to be an absolute slipstream fest from start to finish, I think of all the tracks where you'd start 16th and try and keep your championship hopes alive, I think this track may be it, because we're going to see a lot of slipstreaming past, even in these MX-5s, which are fantastic with slipstreaming, but really they are tiddlers in the slipstream department compared to the Spec Racer Fords that we're going to be seeing in about a half an hour's time. So I think we see, I believe that's Jamison Huffman just running around the track right now. I believe he's the only car on the track right now, so he's just kind of, I wouldn't say petering around. He is still definitely pushing that car. You can see him skating out of those corners, riding those curbs. And I mentioned there, as we were following Megan Overstreet, the curb management is going to be so important, especially going through the bus stop, as you mentioned there a few moments ago towards the start of this broadcast, Charles, that just riding those curbs coming through that corner is going to be very important, especially at the first part of the bus stop. Me personally, I always like to take a just full on, you gotta absolutely flat foot it over that curb and try not to hit the Armco barrier. Do you think that's the best strategy when it comes to negotiating the curbs through there? Just send it?
Yeah, basically it's just send it. It's there's really two entries in there. The one that you mentioned, which is basically you just come straight over the top of the curb and just ride the crest of it. And you can take the safe entry where you'll kind of put your right side tires up on the curb and kick the car around. But that's, generally speaking, 3 to 4 tenths of a second slower by doing that. So the fast line is jumping that curb, but of course it's also the most dangerous, because you got to be able to manage the car and not hit the Armco.
Yeah, it is a very fine line that all these drivers will have to balance at every section of this track. Certainly on lap 1, which we'll be getting in a few moments' time. We have the starting grid right now. And it's Beans Forrester grabbing a pretty dominating pole position. Actually, no, not very dominating. Jamison Huffman managed to improve his time, so he actually improved that under our nose there. So fairly small gap between the two of them on the front row right now. That Megan Overstreet and Murphy Nichols will line up in 3 and 4. Then Brandon Abbott will be in 5th. Skip Rock Jr. starting this race in 6th. The front 4 separated by less than a half a second, so fairly small gaps here, especially up towards the front, which I think will create some pretty good racing akin to a NASCAR style super speedway race. Then it's Lewis Lockshine there in P7, Andrew Wozencroft there in P8, Jack Murchison in 9th, and that's Decon Greenfield rounding at your top 10.
Yeah, P11 we've got Remy Lesperance, Brad Gould in 12th. We've got Tom Laurie in 13th. Greg Ginsburg, happy birthday to Greg, in P14. Stephen Blethen in 15th. Josh Justice outside of row 8. John Wilson, Antonio Race, P17 and 18. Seth Spolman, Andrew Love rounds out your top 20.
And looking through the rest of the field, we have Mark Sherman, Charlie Vaccaro, Stevie Ray, Wayne Buttermore, Joaquin Effinger, and Rich Green rounding at your field. Rich Green did not set a qualifying time. We'll see if he actually takes a start here. So 25 drivers setting a qualifying time in that session, all separated by less than 5 seconds there, so fairly close field. Right now, I think we're in for a pretty good race, and these great races wouldn't be possible if it weren't for the proud partners of this series, one of them being Grassroots Motorsports. Built for true sports car enthusiasts, Grassroots Motorsports has one mission: to be your personal guide to the sports car world. Whether it be online at grassrootsmotorsports.com, in print, or at the track, the racers, mechanics, and car nerds at Grassroots Motorsports will take you behind the scenes of the racing world and teach you how to improve your car. Grassroots Motorsports has a taste of everything that you may want out of this hobby that we all know and love. Whether you want to hear stories about a 1,000 horsepower track monster ripping it around a track wherever it is across the country, or cool street cruisers built in driveways, they've got you covered. Grassroots also has a collection of stiff, maintained project cars and a catalog of articles breaking down the ins and outs of cars ridden in a garage with greasy hands rather than typed behind a very clean desk in a prim and proper office. If you'd like to read, learn, and be a part of the story, head on over to grassrootsmotorsports.com. Grassroots Motorsports is a proud partner of the Ray Esports Racing League, and recently on their YouTube channel, they posted a nice little piece going over autocross and how many people in the SCCA, many people in the racing world got their start off in autocross, one of them being Robbie Foley and Morgan Burkhardt, both who competed in the IMSA events at Daytona these past few weeks, and they both had some very eventful times there in South Florida. Actually, no, that's North Florida. You can tell I was always great with geography in school, but we have some great sponsors, and I think some great racing ahead of us. Would you say that the field up towards the front is going to be like a Tour de France style peloton, or do you think it's going to be more of a train here, Charles?
I think what we're going to see is a train at least until the first, I guess, slowdown or incident. Then this when you'll start seeing the gaps. But I think as long as everybody keeps the cars clean and stays clean on the track, then we'll keep that train going for quite a while. So that's what I'm kind of looking out for. It'll be the brakes will be where we get cars that either wreck or go off track or have slowdowns, and that'll be where the brakes start occurring. But I think at least for the first few laps, it'll be pretty much nose to tail.
I think the main thing in these first few laps is just trying to keep it clean at a track like this, which isn't very forgiving, even though it has those fairly big and expansive asphalt runoff areas. You still don't want to make a mistake and end up in those blue tire or Armco barriers. That's going to be very important for these drivers as they're about to take the start here in a few moments' time. That Porsche pace car has made the hard turn to go down pit road. The field now is in the hands of your pole sitter, Beans Forrester. He's jumped on it already. The green flag is that, and you can already see some drivers trying to shuffle for position farther behind. It's a fairly good start there for Jameson Huffman. He's going to try and stick it going around the outside here, heading into one. I don't think he'll be able to get done. Actually has a pretty good run there coming around the outside. He may be able to clear Beans Forrester here, heading into two. It's going to be very close. He does clear him there. So you can see some two wide action all throughout this field. You can see Megan Overstreet hasn't had the best start in the world. She's now battling for her life to maintain a top 5 position there with Skip Rock Jr. So you can see the top 5 have already broken up a little bit. You can see some 3 wide action here with Megan Overstreet, Skip Rock Jr., and you can see the number 5 in the middle. That he is the meat in that sandwich as they head into the bus stop. Oh, you can see a little bit of contact there with Skip Rock Jr. I saw a little bit of kick-out action entering the corner, but they've all managed to get through cleanly so far. A very clean start, much cleaner than I was expecting, Charles.
Yeah, I did see one incident. It looked like Les Bronx may have got hit from the rear going into one and spun the car. So he's dropped back several positions along with Greg Ginsburg, who's looks like already towed to the pits. So not the way Greg wants to celebrate his birthday, I'm sure, is with a tow and a fast repair.
Fortunately, we don't have any birthday cake. We may have to DoorDash some birthday cake just to give to him while he's waiting at the rest of this MX-5 race. Very tough start for him, but so far fairly clean for these drivers. We're following Lewis Lockshine running in P8. He's really maintained his position in the top 10, but is now at risk of losing a spot there. You can see he actually managed to cover off that challenge there from Greenfield, heading into, I believe that would be the heel there, heading into that corner. You can always tell. It's nice to have some good corner names for once in a while. It's always a bit boring having just turn 1, turn 2. It's nice to have some I guess it would be, well, it'd be named after a shoe. Well, actually, no, you have a heel that's part of the body. So actually, you could also say that's named after the piece of bread at the end of the loaf. So we've got that many different interpretations you could have of that corner name.
Well, no, it's actually named after the boot, which is the boot section. So you've got the chute going down, you've got the toe, and then you've got the heel. And though I never could come up with a good name for that corner coming out of the boot, though. That's the one that always, that always trips me up because it's such a weird corner, and then B, it just doesn't have a good name. So maybe I have to come up with something tonight.
I think if they ever reprofile that corner, which based off my experience going through that corner, I sincerely hope that they do, I would donate all of the money I have, which is about a $25 Applebee's gift card, to them profiling that corner and giving it a better name. I'm not sure what the back of the shoe is called, where you put your foot in. So I think I was thinking shoehorn corner, but I don't think that'd be the best name in the world. Probably wouldn't roll off the tongue for us commentators too well.
Well, we're going to get a replay from Josh here. So he's going to jump in here. Let's see what we get. All right. So it looks like they're trying to go 3, maybe 4 wide. Yep, looks like a 4 wide in there. And yep, just gets a little bump from the rear, spins the car around. Luckily not hit by anybody. That's nice driving by everybody behind. And so he's able to just get the car righted and turn back on and back up on the track.
And we're following Greg heading through turn 1. I think, that is a game ender for Greg. Very unfortunate start for him. You can see drivers spearing all their way around the track. We're getting another angle here, heading through 1. Little bit of contact there. He was getting really beat and bang coming through this section here, and ooh, that's a very, very strange incident there. It's a bummer. That is a definite there. A very unfortunate way to start off this race. 20 minutes ahead of him, and sadly for all those drivers' races to end so very early on is a little bit of a tough break.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, this is a very, very short. I mean, it's a 20-minute race, so even if they get back out on track and continue, unless somebody else wrecks, you're not going to gain a lot of positions. So you know what they said, we'll reset. You know what, the other practice session's open. Let me go in their car and get some practice in, and so maybe the next race will be better. Which is always a good strategy. So we'll look to see Greg coming up in the spec racing race.
We will definitely see what he can do there. It's going to be a lot more of a slipstream fest, but even though it's a lot more of a slipstream fest in the spec racer Fords, that doesn't discredit the slipstream power of these MX-5s. You can see now we might have a challenge for the lead here. Heading into the bus stop, you can see Beans Forrester and Jamison Huffman going side by side through there, and Beans Forrester grabs the lead there, but it's not over yet. You can see Jamison Huffman was trying to go for a move there, heading into the outer loop, but just wasn't close enough to get the job done. What these drivers really have to keep in mind is trying not to put too much of a beating and banging on their tires in the early stages, but that doesn't stop Jamison Huffman from trying to get a move done here. Heading into the boot section, they're still going side by side as they're about to enter the tow section. You can see now Skip Rock Jr., our camera car of this fight, right behind them. He is sizing these two up and might try and pick off Jamison Huffman here. He's on his inside. They're going side by side. Jamison Huffman may lose this position. I think he may have to back out of it a little bit as they head into the heel here in a few moments' time. Maybe Skip Rock Jr. might try and make it 3 wide with these two. That'd be a very bold and audacious move to go through nearly a quarter of the way into this race here, but he's still going side by side there with Jamison Huffman. All these drivers are pretty close, but what they're doing is allowing that pack of cars right behind them to close up even more. As you can see now, Jamison Huffman trying to get that job done here on Beans Forrester. I think he wasn't able to get the job done, but all of that has resulted in the gap between Skip Rock and John Murchison just cratering. It is a minuscule gap compared to what it once was. You can see now Jack Murchison, my apologies, I gave him a new nickname there. You can see him, very interesting interpretation of aerodynamic limits as he used his windshield wipers heading through the final corner, but he is caught up to this pack here now. So this 3-car peloton that was forming has now turned into a massive train, as now Megan Overstreet has caught up to them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And these front two, Huffman and Forrester, have been side by side essentially for an entire lap at this point. So it's like this is very, very good driving, and they haven't hit each other. So now you're 2 by 2 with another 8 or 10 of your best friends behind you, trying to even make that tighter. So now it's 2 by 2, 3 deep, with more cars just seemingly adding to this. It's going to make for a very, very interesting end to this race. I mean, we're only 7.5 minutes in, but if you've got 10 cars that close together, coming into the last couple of laps, it's going to get wild.
This is a massive pack of cars right now. We're 7.5 minutes in, and currently the top 13 are separated by only 2.7 seconds. So we have a massive train of cars, and right at the back of that fight is Josh Justice here. You can see him in the number 99. A little bit of front end damage there already on the front end of that MX-5 car. So right now, you can see a driver falling out of that fight there. That's Wozencroft spinning wildly out of control coming through the toe. I think there might have been a little bit of assistance there as he tries to get back on the road. Be very careful on the rejoin. We're getting a very quick replay here. Thank you very much, Josh. Heading into the toe right behind Megan Overstreet. Made a little bit of contact with her entering the corner, and then Andrew Wozencroft gets a little bit of a bump there. I believe that was Greenwood that he made contact with. Luckily for him, he manages to get into the grass before that onslaught of cars nearly hits him there. So thankfully for Wozencroft, he manages to escape that somewhat clean. A little bit of damage on the front end, but still down in P22 after he was running firmly in the top 10. That is a heartbreak.
Yeah, you could just kind of tell the difference between, how important mechanical grip is for these cars. He hit Overstreet basically on the straightaway, and they were both able to continue on. He got bumped in the apex of the corner where the tires are under the greatest load, and it just took a small tap to send the rear of the car around. So it just goes to show you how important it is to keep these tires up underneath you, and it doesn't take much to get you turned the opposite direction.
All of that chaos involving Wozencroft has now split this pack a little bit. You can see now Megan Overstreet is a tail end of that fight, currently running in P6. The gap between herself and Greenfield there in P7 is about a second, but you can see now the battle is still hot up towards the front. Jamison Huffman trying to get 2 cars at once here, heading into the bus stop, and he manages to get it done there. That is a brilliant, very textbookly pulled off move there from Jamison Huffman to grab 2 cars at once, but it's not over yet. We get a beautiful view there of the engine compartment of Beans Forrester's MX-5. They're heading through the outer loop there, but right now this fight is not, it's far from over. We've had so much action so far. I mean, these drivers were going side by side for basically like 2 minutes straight not very long ago, and we haven't even hit the halfway mark of this race. It just shows you the awesome action we always come to expect from this series week after week.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all it's going to take is for these front 2 cars to start going side by side again, and this pack it's just going to shrink right back up into one big wad, and then there'll be 12 cars up there battling for the race win at the end of this. So we'll just kind of watch to see if they're going to stay in line and kind of behave themselves, or if they're going to keep battling for the next 10 minutes or so of this race.
I applaud the usage of the word WAD there,
yeah.
Mr. Michelle. I really appreciate that.
I mean, it's a technical term. I don't want to get anybody over anybody's head, but I mean, it's a very technical term there. But
I'm going to have to start using that a lot more in my broadcast here on Apex, because that is a very funny word to say. That wasn't a very funny moment there from Nichols as he had a massive sideways snap there heading into the final corner. That is a very big moment, but thankfully it didn't check him up too badly. You can see now Megan Overstreet running on board with her, still running in P6. I'm sure she's not very happy with how her race has gone up to this point, but she hasn't really done anything majorly wrong at this stage. She's just fallen back a little bit, so maybe it could go back to the point that we were trying to mention a few moments ago before the action started flaring up towards the front. Tire management could be a big factor in this race at a track like this, where the slipstream is very important, but also the mechanical grip is as well. So Megan Overstreet maybe just dropping back here, trying to keep her car clean and just keep her tires under her, but that's not what these drivers up towards the front are thinking. You can see now Jack Murchison trying to go side by side there with Skip Rock Jr. heading into the corner. A little bit of contact. Skip Rock Jr. cut the course there. I think he may have to pick up a slowdown penalty after that off-track excursion for him, so we'll see if he slows down here, but that was a little bit of contact there between himself and Murchison heading through the bus stop. They tried to go side by side there, and that could have ended in an absolute heartbreak if the walls were any closer. We're going to get a very quick replay. Thank you very much, Josh. Heading into the bus stop, this was a very close moment.
Yeah, it really was. 2 wide into the bus stop. You got to be very careful. And then because it's side by side, now you bring the 3rd car in, and it's very close. But everybody managed to get through. There's a little bit of contact, but managed to get through safely. And it kind of let the front 2 just kind of maybe get out a little bit there. Well, it looks like they're tightening it back up again. And you see the that back 5 cars or back 6 cars have started closing the gap up as well. So we'll see Justice off the back of that now. So it looks like now it's down to 11 cars in that front group, as we see a little gap between 3 and 4. So once again, once these front 2 cars start battling, that'll just bring everybody back up to the party, and we'll continue swapping positions.
Now, I gotta wonder at this stage of the race if we're gonna see a little bit of teamwork of these drivers trying to break up this fight a little bit more. I think the front 3, even though they are going side by side, Beans Forrester trying to get a move done going down the inside, heading into 1. He manages to get the move done going through turn 1. But I think at this stage, maybe my perspective is a little bit different. Obviously, that's why I'm in the commentary booth and not behind the wheel. But if I were Skip Rock Jr. or Jamison Huffman or Beans Forster, I would say to the guys I'm battling with, hey, let's kind of work together as a team, try not to race each other too hard, and just break ourselves away from that massive pack of cars. Because if any of those 3 drivers make some really crucial mistake, they're going to lose a lot of time. If they lose about 2 seconds, they're going to drop out of the top 10, which shows you how massive the pack up towards the front of this field is right now. So I think these drivers, maybe, again, my perspective is a little bit different, but if it were me, I would be like, hey guys, let's just work as a team and try and build a little bit of a gap between us and Murchison running in P4.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good strategy. You saw coming up the back straight into the bus stop, where Murchison Nichols just pushed him. And so basically it was just bump drafting, and they picked up about a half second as we see a spin in the back.
Oh, that is a massive accident there. That is Abbott there in the number 26 car. Be very careful, anyone. Try not to hit him there, but we're getting a very quick replay. Thank you very much, Josh. Very quick with the replays here tonight, but you can see just side-by-side action going horribly wrong there. I think Abbott was being used there just a little bit as a pick. You can see the car that he was battling with was not really giving him a whole lot of room, running him entirely out of the curb, which was going to be running out. The curb was ending at about 50 feet. So unfortunately, Brandon Abbott just a victim of some very aggressive racing there, and he gets caught out by massively, takes himself out of the race, and fairly high attrition rate thus far. You can see right now only you can see about pretty much the front 19 haven't been involved in some kind of accident, and you can see Wilson and Ginsburg there farther towards the back. Ginsburg, of course, had that very big accident coming out of one at the very start of the race, and Wilson hasn't had a very good race himself, currently running down in P20 a little bit farther in front of Greg right now. So a lot of drivers having some very tough races currently, but one driver not having a very tough race is a driver that we haven't really mentioned throughout this broadcast. Tom Laurie up 4 positions from where he started, running in P9. He's just been quietly picking up the spots and not really minding anyone's business, as has Stevie Ray. You can see him up 8 positions from where he started, currently running in P15. So a lot of drivers clawing up their way nicely with all the chaos that's been going on around them.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, this brings into it another thing as we see them closing up on Wilson. So now he's going to be maybe, if unless he does a really good job of just getting out of the way, maybe a little cork in the bottle for those front 2 cars that may tighten this group up even further. So he's got to be they have to be very careful as they're navigating the lap traffic. There are a couple of cars, I think they got through Ginsburg, so I think Wilson may be the last one, unless we have another incident on track. So they have to be very careful there as they're working their way around him.
Yeah, at a track like this, which isn't the widest in the world, is certainly much different compared to some of the just giant tracks that we visited so far this season. It's a little bit wider compared to Summit Point last week, that is for certain, but still, it's not the widest track in the world. So if they catch these lap cars, if they catch up to John Wilson at a very inopportune part of the racetrack, that'll end in absolute tears. I saw some very weird interpretations of track limits a little bit farther behind. I think I saw a lot of those drivers grazing the grass coming at the heel. That is a line that we don't really see used often here, regardless of what series you're running in, but you can see it's still hard stuff right now. Megan Overstreet still trying to defend as hard as she can to hold on to that P6 position. I think she's in real danger of dropping back even more, because I'll take a look at my live timing screen, but she hasn't really put in some good paces. You can see now John Wilson thankfully getting out of everyone. That's a very much a sportsman move there. Yep,
absolutely. Yeah, he did a great job. Just got to the straightaway and just basically let off the throttle and let all that front group get around. So very good sportsmanship there. Just let these cars race.
And with that racing that's been going on, you can see now the gap is a little bit, it's grown a little bit. Skip Rock Jr. has fallen out of touch with these front 2, Beans Forster and Jamison Huffman working together. You can see them just banging with each other, bump drafting, going down this back straightaway. I was going to joke about during the qualifying session, but you should savor the way some of these MX-5s look at the front of their cars, because with all these drivers bump drafting as hard as they can, you can see it perfectly on Jamison Huffman's car. They're going through the bus stop. That front end of that MX-5 is wrinkled quite significantly. It's definitely not the worst damage in the world, but I think when it comes to his straight line speed, it's definitely hurting him just a teeny tiny bit, maybe 1 mile an hour. But at a track like this, which is so straight line dependent and slipstream dependent, 1 mile an hour can make a massive difference here at this track.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's about 2 inches shorter than it was before they started the race. It's just it's a byproduct of the racing, right? So we've got the bump drafting. The cars are they're evenly matched. So it's basically just how fast can you make your car go versus the rest of the drivers. So you hit that draft, and then so basically nose to tail, and so yeah, the nose will get wrinkled a bit, the tail will get wrinkled a bit, but I think all things being equal, I think everybody's got a little bit of that damage, so it may not be that big of an issue.
think all of these drivers here in this massive fight have damage. You can see there, that's Nichols there at the front of this fight. He has some pretty significant damage, as has that is Murchison there with quite a significant amount of front end damage. So you can see this pack is fairly large. A little bit of contact there in the small little shoot between the second to last and the final corner there between Lewis Lockshine and Jack Murchison. I believe they're going to be taking the white flag this time by. Yeah, the white flag is out, so they will be taking the checkered next time by. Only one lap to go, and with this massive fight here, I think it's actually broken up a little bit here, so I think our attention may have to shift up towards the front. Skip Rock Jr. has closed in on that pack. You can see now he has cratered that gap. It was about 0.8 of a second not very long ago. Now he's roughing it up with Jameson Huffman and Beans Forster trying to make it 3 wide, nearly going through the very tight twisty section of turns 2, 3, and 4 that we outlined at the start of this broadcast. We can see very aggressive bump drafting between Skip Rock Jr. and Jameson Huffman. They're going side by side, Beans Forster and Jameson Huffman heading into the corner. It's a battle of bravery here, but you can see now Jameson Huffman has pulled ahead, but it's not over yet. There's still multiple overtaking opportunities that some of these drivers may use at their advantage between now and when these drivers are going to be taking the checkered flag. Who do you think is going to prevail here, Charles?
Oh, there's no way of knowing at this point. But Brock did a good job. He just basically drafted up to get to the. He was by himself, so he basically just drafted up behind these 2 cars, and that's how he was able to get back in contention to fight for the win here.
I think if these 2 up ahead of him come to blows, he could very well win this thing right now. He is running in P3, not really forcing the issue, but I think he can really sense what would happen if these 2 make contact. Actually, no, he's forcing the issue here, heading into the heel, trying to make it 3 wide. He's going to be on the inside. A little bit of contact there between Beans Forster and Jameson Huffman. They're still going side by side, heading into this very awkward corner here. I guess we'll rename it Shoehorn Corner from here on out, but you can see now they're still going side by side, going back onto the main layout here, the Cup layout, the small little back straightaway that they have on the NASCAR Cup layout, heading into the second to last corner. They're still going side by side. Beans Forster going to be stuck on the outside here. A little bit of contact there. They come to blows a little bit. Now you can see Skip Rock Jr. trying to sneak a wheel down the inside. It's going to be a drag race here coming out of the final corner. It's Beans Forster and Jameson Huffman going side by side, but it's going to be Beans Forster taking the win just barely over his adversary there. A little bit of wall contact farther in the back as they exited the final corner, and the front 2 went side by side, 3 wide across the line, and probably about a foot separating them after about 20 minutes of racing action. That was awesome.
Yeah, 0.04 of a second was the gap from Forster to Huffman, and then another 0.12 back to Skip Brock. So yeah, fantastic race, great finish. Basically 3 wide coming down. Brock did a really good job of just trying to find an trying to find an opening to get by, and just wasn't able to do it.
Yeah, that was very smart racing from Skip Rock Jr. to even be involved in the fight up towards the end, but I think maybe if he had about 1 more lap, I think he maybe would have been able to get it done. Still a very honorable drive from him, but Beans Forster, we might see some donuts here from him in the other runoff area of the bus stop chicane. Ooh, I think he's trying to attempt a donut. Oh, a little bit of contact there, I think. So he's picking up the 4X after the checkered flag. So I think after that he did, yeah, you can see 2 chirps of the tires there as he tried to do a donut at another attempt. So I guess this is a doe from Beans Forster there in the bus stop. Oh, I think this is an unintentional donut here from Decon Greenfield. Comes home in P8. Very dramatic race. He was involved in that massive fight farther towards the end of the top 10. But very dramatic race here from start to finish. Beautiful battles up towards the front, whether it be in the top 10 or whether it be for the drivers running in the podium spots. But overall, it was Beans Forster taking the win here. We're going to get the results here in just a few moments time for you to cap off this MX5 race. Before we hear from some of these drivers, very, very dramatic race, and it was Beans Forster taking the win. As he said, very small gap, only 0.035 of a second between himself and Jameson Huffman there after 20 minutes. Skip Rock Jr. comes home in third, a very good podium run from him. That's Murphy Nichols finishing in P4. Megan Overstreet rounding out your top 5. Actually managed to get by Murchison in the dying stages of the race, who finishes right behind her in P6. Lewis Lockshine then finishes in P7. Decon Greenfield finishes in 8th. Tom Laurie, very quiet race there in 9th. Brad Gould will round out your top 10.
Yeah, P11, Josh Justice had moved up several positions, just really couldn't get into the fight. Antonio Race in P12, Andrew Love, Stevie Ray on row 7, Spolman, and then Blevin is 15th and 16th, Andrew Wozencroft in 17th, Wayne Buttermore in 18th, Mark Sherman in 19th, and that was the last car on the lead lap. John Wilson and Greg Ginsberg a lap down, P20 and 21. Brandon Abbott 3 laps down in P22. Charlie Vaccaro 5 laps down in 23rd. Rich Green 24, 6 laps down. Joaquin Effinger 25th, 7 laps down. And Remy Lesperance, who we saw with the early spin, finished 8 laps down and 26th.
Now we actually have some drivers waiting in the interview waiting room here, having a little bit of an itch to chat with us. So I think I will bring in your winner here from this MX5 race, and that is Beans Forrester. Sorry to bring in their mid-conversation. Sorry about that, Beans. But very dramatic race from your perspective. How was it out there?
It's, again, so much fun, like always. And Jameson and Skip being able to go too wide for an entire lap. Rubbing doors and not sending each other to the wall. It's why I'm here. It's why I love this league. It's because everyone in it has that mutual respect for their competitors, which is how we're able to race the hardest I think I've probably ever raced anybody in iRacing.
Respectful and very hard racing, and one of the biggest indicators of that was how hard y'all were bump drifting going down that back straightaway. So do you think that just level of aggression when it comes to the bump drafting is going to carry over into the Spec Racer Ford race here tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. Sadly, I won't be able to do the Spec Racer Ford race tonight, but absolutely. I mean, those things are, again, this car and the Spec Racer Ford, they're both animals in the draft, and so you can your front train is so many cars back because you can be a second and a half back and gain so much time going up through those S's into the bus stop.
Well, that wonderful drafting ability lends itself to some fantastic racing. We're very pleased with how dramatic of a race we just saw here in the commentary booth. I'm sure all the drivers were pleased with a great race that y'all just put on. So sorry that we won't see you in the Spec Racer Ford, so I'll end it off with this. Anyone you'd like to give thanks to or shout out?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Definitely all the competitors here that put on such a good show. You guys for hosting such a good show, and then FullSenseSims.com for supporting me and helping me get better with my sim racing.
I may have to take some lessons myself because I saw some nice saves there and nice moments on track there that I only wish I could emulate in the Sims. So Beans Forrester, thank you so much for joining us, and fingers crossed we'll see you next time out at Mid-Ohio.
Yeah, sounds good, guys. Thanks.
That was your winner tonight, Beans Forrester. And now, Charles, who do you like to talk to?
Well, let's just go down the list and let's talk to our second place finisher, Jamison Huffman. Jamison, second place tonight. Great race from start to finish. The front, 13 or so put on a really good show. Then you and I believe it was Forrester. It might have been Brock, but you went a full lap side by side, which is impressive. It's impressive anytime, but then you get a tight track like this at Watkins Glen, and you guys are going side by side all the way around. It was great to watch.
Yeah, it was a fun race, man. Just start to finish, pretty much just laughing the whole time, just having fun. And there's a lot of respect between us, especially up towards the top, considering we're really used to racing each other. So we roughly know each other's limits and kind of know what to expect from one another. So we usually keep it pretty clean up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of the reasons I like broadcasting these races because, this and the Weekend Warriors, it's just fantastic racing. It's just a really good community of drivers, and I always enjoy watching the battles from the start of the race to the end.
Yeah, looking forward to that in surf.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're going to be in the surf race as well?
Yep, out qualifying right now.
Oh, cool. So what are you expecting for that? More of the same, or then some?
Hopefully the same. I'd always like the win, but I'm really just hoping for a fun fight and not to end up in the wall like the bus stop usually likes to try and make me do. So.
All right, we'll catch you in, and we'll catch you in the next race.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That was your P2 finisher, Jamison Huffman, and as you heard him say in that interview, qualifying is already underway for the Spec Racer Ford, so unfortunately Skip Rock Jr., who's waiting to talk to us, I will deflect him out of the interview waiting room because he has a Spec Racer Ford to qualify, so I think we'll pass it along to commercial breaks. We'll be right back with the Spec Racer Ford race after these messages.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We're now in the second half of this broadcast here tonight with the Ray Esports Racing League here at the wonderful and ever historic Watkins Glen. So now we're in the second half here with the Spec Racer Fords. You can see them on track right now, currently in qualifying as things stand at the moment. Your pole sitter, provisional pole sitter, I should say, is Joshua Soto, a name that we have seen before in the Ray Esports series, but a name that we haven't really seen so far this season. So that's a very nice result from him, currently at a 2:03.98 right now. So we'll see if that time holds right now between now and the end of the qualifying session, which is coming up soon. But I will say, before we get really in depth and talk about this qualifying session, I think we may do this a little bit earlier this time and take a look at the points standings right now in the Spec Racer Fords, because much like the MX-5s, it is incredibly tight. We have seen a nice argy-bargy racing here in the Spec Racer Fords, and this will be one of the last races of their season. So you can see Bradford Gold there at the top of the point standings at 57 points. You can see Megan Overstreet in P2 at 44, tied with Charlie Vaccaro in P3, Jameson Huffman there in 4th, Trent Kramer in 5th, Andrew Wozencroft in 6th, Wayne Buttermore in 7th, Stephen Blethen in 8th, Skip Rock Jr. and Stevie Ray rounding out your top 10. So fairly close stuff there between 2nd and 3rd, but Bradford Gould looking to try and build on that championship gap that he has right now of, I believe that would be 13 points. Very quick maths in my head that were probably incorrect, and it's looking like he has the opportunity to extend that too. He's currently P4 in this qualifying session right now, which, with how much of a draft fest we expect this race to be, that's a decent position to be in. So Charles, heading into this race, do you think this is going to be even more how much do you think this is going to be in terms of slipstreaming compared to the MX-5s? Do you think it's going to be the MX-5 race just cranked up to 11, or do you think it's going to be on some illegal substances that they use at the Olympics that I cannot say here on Apex Racing TV by name?
So let's go back to a few weeks ago to Homestead, and we saw a fantastic Mazda MX-5 race at Homestead on the road course. And then we had the Spec Racers. And for whatever the MX-5 race was, the Spec Racer was just that plus. The draft cone is a bit bigger here. These cars, if they're within a second of the car in front, they're going to be gaining time down the straightaways. These cars may be nose to tail, 4 or 5 deep going down the back straight. So it's all everything the MX-5 race had, and then just a little bit more of it. So I'm fully expecting this to be, assuming we don't have a tragic incident that involves several of our cars. You may see these 19 cars on track. They may be nose to tail for the first half of the race. Once we start having some incidents and people making mistakes, that pack will break up just a bit. But as long as everybody stays clean, it may just be one big draft fest for the entire race.
Honestly, the train action would not shock me one bit. I can imagine that'll be how this race is throughout a vast majority of the 20 minutes that we're going to see here in a few moments' time. So qualifying, you can see the flagman just violently waving that checkered flag, sustaining about 50 Gs on that flag. They're waving it there to signal the end of the session, and right now it's looking very good for Soto there in P1. Pretty big gap between himself and Antonio Reese there in P2, a name that I recognize, and I'm sure you do as well. I'm 99% confident you recognize it as well, Charles, from the Weekend Warriors series here on Apex Racing TV, also run by Stevie Ray, who we saw pull off there into the other runoff area. Fairly ho-hung qualifying from him, currently in P15, so qualifying is soon to wrap up here in a few moments' time. You can see Reese trying to set one last hurrah here, but considering he doesn't have any slipstream to help him out at this point of the lap, I wouldn't be too shocked if he doesn't improve here, but still a very good performance from the driver racing out of Portugal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Antonio's a fantastic driver. He's one of our Masters drivers, so that's 55 years or older, and he is week in and week out, he's always challenging for top 10s and top 5s. Just an amazing driver. He's constantly battling with a couple of our other Masters drivers for class wins. So it's no surprise that he's running up front. He's very, very good with the Spec Racer.
I believe now we're waiting for him to really pull into the pits, but as I was looking at the ticker there on the left-hand side of your screen with all the wonderful SDK graphics, I saw a fairly spread out field when it comes to qualifying time, so that's a little bit different than what I was expecting. So qualifying is in the dying stages of it. I believe they'll be lining up on the grid here in just a few moments time, but fairly spread out grid compared to what I was expecting, about 0.2 of a second separating your front row sitters. So we'll get some more detailed look at the lap times here in a few moments time as qualifying has now officially come to an end. You can see the drivers lining up on the grid, and we're gonna get the starting grid for you right now. So it's Joshua Soto from Florida lining up for this race in the pole position in the 07 car there at a 2:03.977, and then Antonio Reese will join him on the front row about 0.2 of a second, a little over 0.2 of a second separating those two there. And then Jameson Huffman lining up in P3. You can see the massive gap there, 0.693, so that's a pretty big margin between himself and the front row sitters. Megan Overstreet just a tick slower in P4. Charlie Vaccaro in 5th. Brad Gold in P6, dropping back a little bit, so still pretty good for your current championship leader in the spec race Fords. That's Tom Laurie in 7th. Andrew Wozencroft looking for redemption after a disappointing MX5 race in P8. Murphy Nichols in P9, then Skip Rock Jr. rounding out your top 10.
Yeah, starting with P11, Jack Murchison, Deacon Greenfield in P12, Stephen Blethyn in 13th, Josh Justice in 14th, league organizer Stevie Ray in 15th, Seth Spolman in 16th, Wayne Buttermore 17th, Joe Camilleri in 18th, Mark Sherman 19th, Joaquin Effinger in 20th, and then rounding out our field is Andrew Whitston, P21. Did not set a time. And I'm not sure if he's on the track or not, so we'll have to wait and see if he's decided against competing tonight. But he's at least listed.
Still pretty big field though, 20 cars, 20 spec racer Fords, and I gotta imagine a vast majority of them are going to be spending a big chunk of this race side by side. I think the point that I mentioned there when we were going through the starting grid may not be too accurate, because I'm sure the fairly big gaps that fairly bigger gaps that we were expecting could just be down to the fact that it's very difficult to get the draft and really team up with another car in this qualifying session. So we're on the pace lap now, and I figured it'd be a perfect time to shout out one of the other sponsors of the Ray Esports series and one of the sponsors that makes these broadcasts possible, and that is of course the Inside the SCCA podcast, which features all things SCCA, from road racing to autocross and track night in America, featuring interviews from members all across the different gamuts of the SCCA. It's a podcast for all members of the SCCA to really sink their teeth into and enjoy week after week. The Inside the SCCA podcast is part of the RacingWire Podcast Network, as available on all major podcast platforms. New episodes drop every Friday, so you can listen to them on the way to the track. The Inside the SCCA podcast is one of the proud partners of the Ray Esports Racing League, but I'm sure none of the drivers will have any opportunity to listen to that podcast here during this race, because I think they're going to be so busy just trying to maintain the draft, keep a car in their sights in front of them, and try and keep cars out of their sights in their rear view mirrors. That's going to be pretty important, just trying to single out these cars and pull away a little bit. I think teamwork may play a big role in this race, with these drivers trying to break and form their own little pack here. So you can see the drivers heading into the tow. This is going to be some awesome stuff. What are your thoughts heading into this race here, Charles?
Oh yeah, I think the crew chief software is going to be busy for the next 20 minutes. So yeah, it's going to be one of those that, like I said, as long as everybody stays clean, that you're going to see a very, very long draft train for a lot of this race. There's going to be lots of positions being exchanged up near the front as they just get these big runs down the straightaway. So I'm looking for lots of passes, lots of side-by-side action, lots of drafting, and just lots of fun.
I think Apex Racing TV, if we had some sort of like overtaking drinking game, we would probably have to just completely end it for this race, because I think that would probably lead to some sort of very bad health problems for anyone watching this broadcast here on Apex Racing TV tonight. We're probably going to be seeing about 10 overtakes a lap here. There's going to be some awesome stuff here between now and the checkered flag, and probably about 22-ish minutes time is when this race is going to end. So you can see the field lining up behind the Porsche pace car. They're coming around the final corner. That pace car is going to make that hard hard, very, very hard, and very nice little threading the needle, actually going through a cone there. Very interesting there. But you can see now the field is in the hands of Josh Soto, and the green flag is already out, and you can see some drivers pulling out of line already, some side-by-side action farther in the field. You can see a fantastic start there from the number 89, trying to go side-by-side with your pole sitter, Josh Soto, heading through one, and you can see drivers already being and banging with each other. That's Megan Overstreet involved in that fight, along with Antonio Reese, I believe. So a lot of drivers already roughing each other up a little bit. Thankfully, these cars are a little bit vulnerable. They're a little bit resilient to that contact, so I don't think the damage will be too bad, but you can't afford to have many big moments like that. For the sake of your underpants and your dry cleaners, you don't want to have many big moments like that. So right now you can see a massive pack of cars. They're basically 2 by 3 going down the back straightaway. Stevie Ray's involved in that fight. We're seeing a lot of side-by-side action here heading into the bus stop. Hopefully they can all get through clean there. I think I saw a driver going a little bit slowly farther up towards the front of the field. So I think that might have been a driver getting caught out by one of these ruthless Watkins Glen slowdowns, but so far the start has been very clean.
Yeah, so far so good. We did have that spin by Race that I think basically it was a 3 wide trying to go into turn 1. Oh, as we see a kick out there. Is that Overstreet? Yeah, it was. She just happened to be. It's the same thing that happened in turn 1. It's just they got together and the outside car paid the price for it. So Race is falling back, and now Overstreet's falling back.
Very tough start for her, especially. It's a very big blow to her championship results. We're looking at her following her coming through the bus stop. Just, ooh, you can see she nearly made contact there and was very close to spinning wildly out of control and hitting the outside barrier there coming through the bus stop. But this is the incident that we want to keep our eyes on, heading 3 wide, heading into the boot section here. This is going to be just a little bit, it's a domino effect of contact. There was contact there. I believe that was Rosencroft on the inside that made contact with the car on the outside of him, which resulted in Megan Overstreet getting a little bit of a bump and setting her into the tire barriers. That's a very tough series of events, but something that really couldn't be avoided.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, it's just tight racing, and that's going to happen. I think maybe might have been a little over adjustment by the car in the middle there to try and give the car on the inside room. Did not maybe realize that Overstreet was at least halfway up on the side of his car, and saw the contact there. So see Greenfield falling down the order now. Not sure what happened to him. Oh, spin. Yep. So we might get a replay here. See Greenfield coming down into turn 1. This looks like a solo, or is it somebody just from deep making a dive? No, caught the grass on the outside with the left rear tire, and just obviously there's enough of a change in the off track physics to cause him there. As we see another car parked up against the barrier, I think that's Stephen Blevin.
So this has been interesting as we were following that stuff farther towards the back. You can see now Charlie Vaccaro has slipped his way into the front, and Jamison Huffman is now running down in P4. So that's a very dramatic series of events, and I don't think there was any sort of major incident that caused this. I think it was just a little bit of strategically timed bump drafting and going down the back straightaway, where we're getting a very quick replay here. Going down the back straightaway, Charlie Vaccaro running in P2, Josh Soto giving him the bump right behind, going through, and they're just gonna freight train him out there and really leave Jamison Huffman out to dry there on the outside, heading into the bus stop. So fairly textbook stuff there for the drivers that went just barreled through them. So the drivers running in P1, 2, and 3 right now, but you can see there's a little bit of immunity forming, as you can see now the number 5 there of Nichols and the 7 of Soto going side by side. That was heading through the third to last corner, and that's allowed Jamison Huffman to claw his way up here a little bit. So I think a little bit of a backstabbing from that 3-car coalition that took the front.
Yeah, I think they're absolutely right. They said, yeah, we're going to get by. I think Murchison did a good job. He was the 4th car in line and said, you know what, I'm not going to make it. So he very smartly backed out and decided to stay where he was in P5. So once they got through, they said, all right, now I want to get up front and lead. And so now they're side by side, and this brings those fast drivers, Huffman and Murchison, back up into this battle.
Well, I think we're going to see, yeah, we are seeing it now heading through turn 4, 2x2 action here. We're riding on board Jameson Huffman. It's now going to be 3-wide action here as they're pushing Nichols to the front there. Oh my God, this is going to be very, very close stuff. I think they're going 3-wide there with Murchison on the inside. Very hard stuff. That's I'm not sure if that's a glitch on my end, but I can see a very damaged front end of Jameson Huffman's car. I think his front graphics have been kind of glitching out a little bit on us from our perspective, while seeing at the end of lap 1, it looked like his front end was whacked with a hammer about 100,000 times. So a little bit of a glitch from our end, but you can see that was a little bit of a brain glitch there from both of the drivers running up towards the front. Nichols had a lockup, and then Jameson Huffman had a lockup, and that allowed Josh Soto to now get involved in that fight as he's now trying to take the battle there to Nichols heading into the toe. So it looks like he's going to be able to take the lead if he's able to clear him on corner exit, but now Jameson Huffman has closed up to that fight once again. This battle up towards the front continues to impress week after week.
Yeah, absolutely. And Race has managed to get back up there. He's joined this group to make this 6 cars. So great job by him to recover after that the lap 1, turn 1 incident. So if I'm in, we're looking at this pack where they're just basically battling every corner. If I'm in, P7, if I'm in that group with Gould and Brock and Lori and Justice and Overstreet, I think I might want to say, hey, maybe we didn't run nose to tail for a couple of laps. We're still only 6 minutes into this race, and we're only 4 seconds behind. We can make up quite a bit of time in a very short period, and get back up front here and maybe battle for some podium positions.
As many guidance counselors in my school days always taught me, teamwork makes a dream work. So I think all those drivers will have to apply that mindset with this race. Ooh, I think that may be a slowdown from your front runner. That was very, very wide, and I think he's slowing up a little bit. You can see now the pack is catching up. We're riding on board with Antonio Reese going through this tight turns 2, 3, and 4 section here, going on to the back straightaway. I think that was very marginal to a slowdown. That's a point that we mentioned at the start. It's very easy to pick up a slowdown if you just abuse the track limits there a little bit, but Antonio Reese is now going to be on the inside trying to claim the lead, and he does it heading into the bus stop chicane. So he goes from P5 all the way to P1 in the series of just about 15 seconds, which shows you just how chaotic and how up and down and topsy-turvy these Spec Racer Ford races really are.
Yeah, absolutely. He had a great run coming through the S's. Oh, as we see a little bit of a slide there.
Oh, no.
Oh,
that was
everybody.
I think that was Nicholson. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm shocked that they all kept it at the barriers. Definitely a little bit of damage on Soto and Nichols. Both of them were the ones that were tussling and hitting each other there, heading through the corner. So we may have to take a look at a replay just to really survey the damage that may have been afflicted into those cars and just see how close it was to the both of them just ending their way into the barrier. Oh my God, that was I can imagine that Nichols there in the 5 had to put all the force, every fiber in his being, into slamming on that brake pedal to try and make sure he didn't hit the outside tire barrier there, because that is not a section of the circuit where you want to make side-by-side contact with anyone.
Oh, no. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that would be what would be another technical term I'm going to use for this race would be a Code Brown moment. I think is what that was. So, yeah, just did a great job to hold it, and everybody did a really good job of avoiding him as he was basically, 30-degree yaw in the rear of the car with all the brakes locked up. One piece of contact there with Soto, but it's just side-by-side contact. Doesn't look like either car just took a lot of damage. These cars can take a little bit of bump, beating and grinding on the sides a little better than they can maybe necessarily the front and the rear. So I think everybody's going to be okay, and it's kind of opened up that gap. Now you've got the top 4, and you've got a group of 2, and then you've got a group of 4 from Gould down to 5 down to Overstreet, and then Wozencroft is just kind of hanging on the back of that group.
These cars are very resilient. That's a good point that you make, but I think the front end damage is it's the Achilles heel of these cars, because with these Spec Racer Fords, they have I guess it'd be a mailbox gap there in the front end. Just whenever you go up to a USPS blue postal box and try and slip a letter in, ever since they had to limit the size because people were putting in like who knows what they're putting into the blue mailboxes. But ever since they limited the size, that's basically what the front air slits of these Spec Racer Fords look like. So if these drivers being banged with them a little bit, I think they will block off the front of those cars. You can see, well, that's a little bit of a bent back lip there from Skip Rock Jr.'s car. We've been really neglecting this battle between Gould, Brock, and Justice here. They're going side by side, heading into the toe. There's going to be some hard stuff. You can see a little bit locking up farther up the road. I think there might have been some fisticuffs breakouts in that pack farther up the road. I saw a big lockup. I think I saw some drivers dropping back. I believe that might have involved Nichols and Murchison. If they've now dropped, yeah, you can see their gaps are pretty big compared to the drivers that they were involved in that fight with. So I think they might have come to blows heading into the toe. We might get a quick replay to see what in the world happened between those two. It wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world considering how hard they were racing, but that's not really a corner where we've seen incidents all tonight. We saw no incidents of the sort like it in the MX-5 race, but I believe we have seen one here in the Spec Racer Fords. Heading into the corner and just bump drifting, going wrong. Ugh, that is very hard racing. I think Murchison there in number 148 might have, in retrospect, backed out of the gas a little bit to prevent that happening, but just a little bit of bump drifting going wrong in the braking zone for the toe.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think
heel.
it changed from bump drafting to tandem braking, I think, there for a few seconds. But yeah, everybody managed to get the cars slowed up and without anybody spinning or anything like that. But it's given this this group here that we're looking at a chance to maybe jump up to get to those two. If they do, that makes that a 7-car train. In that case, now that just adds to that pace of that big group to get a chance to maybe make up that gap up to the front. And that's kind of what we're looking at. If they can stay in line and stay together and settle these fights down before we get into the corners, or just go 3 wide through here. They did a good job. Oh, that was a perfect line through there. It was a good job by the other car, Skip Brock, to be able to take that out. That's what we call the outside entry line through the bus stop and manage to carry the enough speed to just keep that group going.
I don't really have a smart remark for the move that Megan Overstreet pulled off going into the bus stop. That was awesome. That's all I have to say about that. And it has given her some positions on the track. We're getting another look at it here. Our producer Josh said that's sick when we were looking at this, and I have to echo that sentiment wholeheartedly. Going 3 wide like it's nothing, threading the needle, coming through this corner in the Spec Racer Fords with no aerodynamic grip and not a whole lot of mechanical grip to work with. And Megan Overstreet managed to stick with only a little bit of grass mowing coming through the final section of the bus stop. That may be our highlight for this broadcast because that was one of the best moves I've seen all season.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely is so far. I think we still got a chance to maybe get a couple more of those maneuvers before this race is over. Still got about 7 minutes left in this race. And still, as these cars just continue to go side by side and fight through the corners, that's a little more incentive for these cars behind to just try and make up that gap.
Going side by side, heading into the bus stop, and it's going to be Jameson Huffman on the inside. He manages to hold off that position for now. It's definitely not over between himself, Soto, and Antonio Reese there in P3, the rear gunner of this fight. I gotta imagine of these three, it's hard to say who's going to be the one prevailing in this fight. My money's on Jameson Huffman because he has the richest experience of being very successful here this season. He's just been kicking everyone's butts, even though the results in the championship haven't really reflected. Jameson Huffman has been running up towards the front in basically all the races, whether it be in the Formulas, the Spec Racer Fords, or the MX-5s. It's currently running at the front of the field right now. I'll take a look at my live timing screen to see what laps they said last time by. Murchison has had some kind of issue. I think Murchison may have had some kind of contact or some kind of connection issue. And I will say Megan Overstreet, as our producer Josh mentioned, has dropped back like a rock, maybe a little bit of slipstreaming there, completely unrelated to Murchison. We'll look at a replay here to see what happened to Murchison. This is heading into the toe here not very long ago, and this is going to be a little bit of a spin here. Ooh, went way too quick into the corner, hits the barriers. A little bit of a suspension damage inflicted in that, and understandably Toes doesn't want to reverse into oncoming traffic. Can't really blame him.
Yeah, I think so. That was Josh in our ear saying, trying to give us a little bit of a heads up on this replay as we see Overstreet. Yeah, just basically just, you know, she's up front. Every car behind her is getting a good run in the draft. And so she just basically drops, you know, 4 positions very quickly as all those cars go by. And then, so now it's going to be a reset. She's still in that group that has Gold, Justice, Brock, Overstreet, and Lori. And so we see Race making the move down the inside, got that preferred line into the corner. It's a little tight on the entry, but looks like he's got it cleared. Oh, did a great job to catch the rear. Yeah, that rear. Once he got that bounce coming off the bus stop, off the curb, the car just wanted to snap around. He did a great job to just hold it and maintain the lead.
Well, that's been going on. I think Megan Overstreet has some kind of incident, that or she blanked out of our screen and disconnected for a very brief moment. We'll see if she reappears, but you can see her dropping down the field now down to P13. I think there may have been an incident involving Megan Overstreet, which would be such a shame. She was putting on such a good race, had that fantastic move not very long ago, but I think things have gone to pot to her. We're getting a very quick replay. This is actually Greenfield heading into the bus stop. This might have been a small little off here. Yeah, you can see hit that bump there, and the bumps have been catching out a lot of drivers. I think Megan Overstreet might have been one of them, because I think she was in this section when that accident happened. So hopefully we can get the replay here of Megan Overstreet in just a few moments time for you.
Yeah, I heard her say something, excuse me, to one of the other drivers right before that happened. So I don't know if there was an incident that happened there or if it was just a connection issue. So, you know, hate to see that, because she was having a pretty good run. Yeah, it does say that it says that she's been disconnected, so she is no longer in the session. So yeah, it's a shame, you know, because that's the one thing, you know, we talk about the online racing, you have issues like connectivity issues to the server, and, you know, hardware issues with your sim equipment, and how that kind of really, you know, is an equivalent to a part failing on your car in a real life race, right? You know, blow a head gasket or something like that. It's just not really something that you can account for. Not anything that you can do anything about. It just happens, and it's just bad luck.
Yeah, sometimes just a little bit of random number generation doesn't go your way, and sadly for Megan Overstreet, she was caught out by that. Josh Justice, who we're following now, heading into the bus stop, has put together a fantastic race right now, running in P6. I believe he is the driver to gain the most positions thus far. You can see him, yeah, +8 from where he started this race from. The only driver that can really contend with him is Joaquin Effinger there in P13, up 7. And then Seth Spolman in P10, up 6. So a lot of drivers clawing their way through the field, but Josh Justice is the one that has really cranked it up to another level. I think he may be able to grab another position here on your championship leader in the Spec Racer Ford category, Brad Gould. This would be a fantastic move, and it would send Gould back to where he started this race. So that's going to be a nice little battle that we have to keep our eyes on between now and the checkered flag. I believe they will be taking the white flag this time by, so we have 1 lap and about 3 corners left to go in this race, in this Spec Racer Ford fight, one of the last Spec Racer Ford races of this Ray Esports season 11. It's really flown by. We only have 3 races left of the actual season itself. Mid-Ohio next week, Sonoma the week after, then Road America to round off the season, followed by the runoffs at Road Atlanta, where all the classes are going to be running. That's going to be a great way to cap off the season 11 here with the Ray Esports Racing League. But we have a fantastic way to cap off this race. It's going to be a 3-horse fight between between Antonio Reese, who's extended a pretty big gap, about a half a second between himself and Soto entering the final lap. And then you've got Jameson Huffman right behind, who I think is a little bit upset and really wants to try and stake his claim on the win and grab a win here in the Spec Racer Fords. There's a lot that's going to be decided here in the next few moments.
Yeah, unfortunately, that 4/10 is not going to be enough because these two cars behind are going to catch him in a hurry. As you can see it already, a gap's already down to a tenth of a second, and they're just going to blow by him. And so now it's going to be, they're going to go side by side. Race is going to try and get back in there and reset himself. There's going to be a couple more chances for him to make a move back up to the front. So for now, it's Huffman in the lead, Soto, and then Race with Charlie Vaccaro just 4 seconds behind in fourth.
Now Josh Justice moving up into the final top 5 spot, overtaking your championship leader right now. But right now you can see hard stuff. It looked like Soto was going to try and attempt a move heading into the corner, but it wasn't close enough. But as that's been going on, Reese is now, I think he's feeling a little bit racy. If he lets these two battle up the road, they may come to blows and just allow him to take a very shock win here in the Spec Racer Ford race. You can see the Scandinavian snake that was patented by Marcus Ericsson in IndyCar at the end of the 2022 Indy 500. It's being used here in the Spec Racer Ford race as Jameson Huffman is desperately trying to break that slipstream, trying to prevent Josh Soto from having a fantastic run, going down that back straightaway and heading into the toe, but it looked like he was going to try and go for a move there, heading into the third for last corner, but I think time is running out for Soto there. He is still very close there to the back of Jameson Huffman. They're going to be going through the final corners of this race, entering the final corner soon, and unless we have a massive send here or a big mistake from Jameson Huffman, it looks like Soto will have to settle for P2, but it's not over yet. We might see some drag racing here coming to the finish. Jameson Huffman there. Ooh, it's going to be a photo finish. I think it's very close there. Soto got him. Soto got him just barely, 0.06 of a second separating them at the finish. That could have been any closer if those drivers had 100 opportunities to try.
No, absolutely not. What a great finish. Soto got a really good run out of the final corner. And Huffman moved over to try and just break the slipstream. And I just think that Soto had such a good run that it didn't matter. He was able to carry his momentum up and make that pass at the very last second. We'll say it like that.
We're taking a look at a replay. I thought that Jameson Huffman had it, but you can see Soto just had a fantastic run, starting at the mid-corner, coming through the last turn, and just by inches, and just barely, oh my god, I thought they were genuinely tied coming across the line. It could be the fact that I have this big microphone in front of my face blocking most of my computer monitor or what. Or riding on board with Soto now had a fantastic run mid-corner. I think Jameson Huffman cutting to the inside, that might have doomed him. I think that could have been the reason why he lost that race, just scrubbed off a little bit of speed, trying to turn tight to get to the inside line. I think that might have been the deciding factor in that race, but still, dramatic stuff from start to finish. That race definitely lived up to the expectations that we had heading into it.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a fantastic race. I mean, it was a great night with both races, great finishes. Obviously, with 3 cars battling at the end in both races, yeah, can't ask for much better than that.
I think before we get into the results, we'll do those after we talk to some of these drivers. And the first one I am going to talk to is Jameson Huffman. I'll give you the honors of talking to the race winner, Josh Soto, here in a few moments' time, but we'll bring in Jameson Huffman here real quick. After a dramatic race from start to finish here in the Spec Racer Ford, Jameson, thank you so much for joining us here in the commentary booth. How's the race?
It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun fighting, clean fighting. Kind of bummed about the finish because it was literally all my fault from that because I tried to carry a bit too much speed and was going straight to the wall and had to fully lift. But it was a great race, fun race. Kept it nice and clean.
Hey, I can't really blame you for being bummed out after that, but we do have to ask about that real quick. I did note that it looked like Soto had a fantastic run mid-corner, so he said he had to lift coming through the midsection of the track to try and avoid hitting that safer barrier. We saw you hit that earlier on in this race, so was that really just a pain in the butt corner to try and get right here in the Spec Racer Fords?
I think lap 1 was just cold tires and trying to push it a bit too much because I saw I had a gap and thought really I can only kind of work it that lap. But other than that, it was just it was good every single other lap except for the first and except for the last lap. So just got pressure.
Well, still, second place isn't the worst result in the world, and I'm still, I can imagine you're very frustrated after that, but I think a little bit of consolation, this may be a slight consolation prize, when Apex Racing TV put together our highlight reel for this month of the broadcast that we've had here on this channel. That screen cap of you two having that fantastic photo finish may be it. So I think all the other logos and all the sponsors that you have on that car, I think, are going to be quite happy about being there on the thumbnail. So I'll end this interview off with that. Anyone like to thanks to or shout outs?
Thanks to parents. Obviously, it's kind of why I'm here in the whole place. And you guys for broadcasting this, and Stevie for putting on the league, and everybody that runs it.
I feel like we've probably asked you that question about 50 to 60 times so far this season, so we may have to switch it up and ask a different question at the end of these interviews. But Jameson Huffman, thank you so much for joining us, and fingers crossed we'll see you next time out at Mid-Ohio.
Yep, I'll be there.
That was your winner, Jameson Huffman, joining us here in the commentary booth. A little bit bummed out after the way that race finished. I can't really blame the guy. So I think, Charles, I will pass the honors off to you to interview your winner tonight, Josh Soto.
Yeah, let's bring in the winner, Josh Soto. Hey, Josh, congratulations, man. That was a fantastic race from start to finish. So how did you feel about everything that was happening tonight?
Oh, man, it was an awesome race. Yeah, it was very fun. I had a little bit of a sketchy moment at the beginning of the race. I didn't anticipate having so much speed going into the bus stop area, but we got it back together and just was very patient.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so we were talking with Jameson earlier. He said he had to lift on that last lap coming into the last corner, which enabled you to keep your run going and end up winning the race by 0.006 of a second.
Oh yeah. Jameson was talking to me. He was telling me about that exact thing. But yeah, it was just try to straight line it straight to the finish line and stuff like that. Try not to scrub off speed. But the turn before that, I had made a little bit of mistake going into that turn. So I thought Jameson was going to win, but unfortunately that mistake.
Well, yeah, there you go. So have you got anybody you want to thank tonight?
Oh yeah, I would like to thank Apex Racing TV. You guys are broadcasters. Also my competitors, and they did great racing, very sportsman-like. Yep.
Oh, cool. Congratulations, Josh. We'll hope to see you next week.
Okay, thank you.
And that was your winner, Josh Soto. Very, very dramatic race there from start to finish, and I think we'll get the results here in a few moments' time. We've just been dwelling on that finish there, looking at about 50 to 60 times, and I think we'll probably be looking at it even more when looking back on this broadcast. A very dramatic way this race ends, and it ends with Josh Soto taking the win, his first of this season, 0.007 of a second over Jameson Huffman there in P2. Antonio Reese finishes in a distant P3. He was a perfect camera car of that very tight finish between the two in front of him, but still a very good race for him to finish on the podium. That Charlie Vaccaro finishing this race in a somewhat quiet P4. Josh Justice putting on a fantastic drive to finish in P5. Brad Gold, your championship points leader in the Spec Racer Fords entering this race, finishes in P6. Tom Laurie there in P7. Skip Rock Jr. in P8. Andrew Wozencroft getting a little bit of redemption after how unfortunate that accident was with him. In the MX5, he finishes in P9. Then Seth Spolman rounds out your top 10.
Yeah, so in 11th place, we had Deacon Greenfield, Wayne Buttermore in 12th, Joaquin Effinger in 13th, Mark Sherman in 14th was the last car on the lead lap. We saw Overstreet would look like just a disconnect or, just a few laps before the end. She ends up finishing 15th, 3 laps down. Murchison in 16th with an issue. Murphy Nichols also 4 laps down in 17th. Joe Camilleri 5 laps down at 18th. Stephen Blevin 19th, 9 laps down. Stevie Ray also 9 laps down, finishing 20th. And then Andrew Whitson never took the green flag, so he will finish 21st.
Still only 21 cars taking the green. I say only 21 cars. It's still a full field, full of action and full of storylines. And this season has been chock full of storylines ever since we started back in December. And as I hinted at in the early stages of this broadcast, we are now in the final third of this season. We still have 3 broadcasts here, 6 races, and of course the other runoff, so technically 9 races, my apologies, between now and the end of February. Some fantastic racing up ahead of us. So just looking through the schedule, we have a fantastic selection of tracks. Of course, I mentioned earlier that next week we will be running at Mid-Ohio. That'll be a pretty good track for the Spec Racer 4s and Formula Cars to do battle. Then we'll be heading to Sonoma the week after, Road America the week after that, and then Road Atlanta, the old home of the runoffs. It was held there for quite many moons, where drivers like Jimmy Vasser, Scott Sharp, and many other stars of racing cut their teeth racing at the SCCA runoffs there when it was held in real life. That'll be the virtual runoffs here on February 17th, but a fantastic selection of tracks between now and the end of the season. So real quick here, Charles, what track are you looking forward to the most?
Oh, wow. You know, I mean, it's a pretty iconic selection of tracks there. You know, I think if I want to pick one, I'm not going to pick one as my favorite. I'm going to pick one as maybe the wild card, and I'm going to say Sonoma, because it's not a track that we run very often. So there's not going to be really, you'll get a chance maybe to run some during the week for the officials, but still, it's a pretty pretty steep learning curve for that track. So I think that may be the wild card week that you will be circling at the end of the season, saying, yeah, this is where it all turned. So that would be the one I would say I would be looking out for. Mid-Ohio is a fantastic track. I think the formulas on Mid-Ohio would be an amazing race. I love Road America. I respect Road Atlanta. I won't say I love it, but it's a great place to watch a race. It's not necessarily my best track by any stretch of the imagination. So I think I'm going to say Sonoma. I'm going to circle that one and say, oh, that might be the one that we need to say, yeah, that might be the one where championships are won or lost.
I think that's a fair assessment there, Charles. That track has fairly high curbs because of the NASCAR Cup Series running there most of the time, so that will be a nice little dichotomy switch between the formulas racing there in race 1 of that evening. Then the MX-5s, we're going to see those drivers beat those curbs to absolute crap all throughout the MX-5 race, so that'll be a nice little switch there during that broadcast. If you want to tune into that broadcast, that'll be on February 13th. If you want to tune into the next broadcast of the Ray Esports Series, that'll be on February 6th here on Apex Racing TV at Mid-Ohio, same time, same place here, always on Apex Racing TV, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. I don't know, maybe I should list some other random time zones, just say what time the broadcast would start in Pango, but as for tonight's race, just action-packed from start to finish, dramatic, a photo finish worth of the ages, really, in the Spec Racer Forge. Just awesome stuff from start to finish. And if you want to keep up to date of all the racing action that we have here on Apex Racing TV from both the Ray Esports Racing League and any of the other amazing series that we have here on Apex, remember to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit like on the stream. If you've used YouTube for about 5 minutes, you know roughly what to do in using this website. So we're now in the late stages of Season 11. The final third of the season is beginning next time out in Mid-Ohio, and I hope you can all join us there in 1 week's time. So for myself, Ron Mullins, Charles Bichelle joining me in the commentary booth, and Josh Wilkie working on the cameras in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for watching. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you all again in 1 week's time.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VR.